All right, so today is December 19th, 2021, and this is now our Western Desiderata meeting. And I'll see it. I think we should at least go over a little bit just for this meeting, Hugh, because you did another post again about the variant and its links to HIV. So do you want to briefly go over for this meeting?
Yeah, I thought I'd just put that out and then I'd feel better, and it actually made me a little worse. I'll tell you why. But before I do that, I just want to show you. There's Can you see the cold moon, the cold full moon on my shoulder there?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't look very good, but it looks spectacular outside. The camera just doesn't do it justice. But anyway, yeah, cold full moon last night. Kind of special time of year, man. This is just magic time of year. Yeah. So anyway, I'll tell you why I got freaked out by that by the posting, because I I went through it. I put all the code words, took all this shit out, and I was surprised that it instantly removed it. So I couldn't post it on Reddit. So, you know, so I tried various things. I often have this problem. If you try and post these things, you'll realize how strict these censorship is. And I heard people saying, "Oh, censorship, oh bullshit." It's like, fuck me, George. Have you ever tried to post anything that's a little bit off message? Is man, it's so strict. But here, this is why I got freaked out, because I didn't have any code words in it. So I was a little confused. And what I found out was it was the links. Basically the combination of links to the stuff that I was doing. Now all those links are all legit. They're all mainstream. They're Wikipedia and shit. So I'm left thinking, I don't freaking believe this. They what I'm thinking now is this is what I thought, that they must have told some code monkey out there. The guys on Reddit must have said, write a thing so that if there's any link between HIV and the bug, remove it. I thought, like, and then my mind boggled, because I thought, like, hang on a minute, it's just like that was like a gut punch to me, because it's like these guys want you to be scared of this bug, and so it's like, why? It means that somebody told Reddit, make sure that no one can do a link, can link these two, and it's like, why would they do that? There's only one reason I can think of. I mean, they want you to be scared of the bug. You would think they would love you, a conspiracy theory running around there about HIV and stuff like that. And so, I can think of a few things. One of them is they don't want any HIV conspiracies, because there's a long tradition of particularly in Black communities, that they don't want HIV medications, because Black people know where this came from, right? They know where HIV came from. They not in any doubt about it. Now, all the the Antonys, the Anthony F's of this world and stuff. They all have this theme about, well, we must try squash those conspiracy theories so that we can get these guys to take the antiviral medication and stop the spread of AIDS and stuff like that. But it's like, you patronizing little fucks. It's like, how do you know better than everybody in Africa? Just the automatic assumption by the average clinician is that, oh, this is just wicked conspiracy theories from Africa. It's like, yeah, you're patronizing little shit. It's like, you go and look, go and ask somebody, go ask the people that were involved. It's like, that is not a wicked conspiracy theory that circulates amongst African Americans. It's basically, they know what happened to them, right? The Tuskegee syphilis experiments were all, just a wacky thing that African Americans came up with, until fucking it turned out to be true. So it's like, anyway, it just boggles my mind that the obvious thing is why they don't want you to make that connection is that it's true, that and so they are really scared that you don't make that connection, because according to me and all the stuff that I know and the stuff that you can't talk about and can't say is they're both bioweapons. They both come out of bioweapons research by accident or intent. They come from bioweapons research. So yeah, it really shocked me that they're actively working against you making that connection. Then I looked at other stuff because I've always wondered, why did that paper appear by those Indian guys in Nature and got retracted? Very early on, they were saying they're fascinating things about correlations between these two at the genetic level. And then it got retracted. And I was like, what the hell? And then I see that, look at one of those links there, is it happened in China again and again. These guys came up and said, there's an interesting little I was like, what the fuck is going on? And so I don't know, man. Just keep watching the thing, because the symptoms are the same as HIV-1. The symptoms of the G variant are exactly the same. All, even down to the blooming sores in the mouth and stuff, canker sores in the mouth and stuff. So it's just like, man alive, I cannot shake this creepy feeling that I have. Is I've seen all this before. I thought I'd left all of this stuff behind, and to see it coming out now, I'm just like, oh my god. Because you don't, I learned very quickly that the normies and liberals in the West, particularly people in England and stuff, they have their own myths and their own stories, and one of them is, the conspiracy theories on there, and AIDS is one of the original conspiracy theories. And so you can't tell anybody, well, actually, you have inside information that you're full of shit, Mr. Liberal. You learn very quickly to stop having those conversations, because otherwise people just ostracize you. So in the 80s, then I learned, you just shut up about what you know, because what's the point of telling people that they don't know, they don't know shit. They just hate you. And so it's like, okay, so just like say, okay, I know completely different shit, and live in your fantasy world, and it's okay. That's the price of living in immigrating out of Africa, is you just got to accept that people believe different shit and they don't want to know otherwise. And then it's like, yeah. Then I thought, well, what does it matter? It's all in the past. And then it's like, well, man, I got such this dreadful weight on my shoulders, saying like, oh god, it's all coming back. It's not left in the past. It's kind of like I tried to ignore it, and you can see little signs, all the thing. But I'm telling you guys, these guys are eugenicists, right? They're eugenicists. All these, little Anthony F's and stuff like that. The Peter Daszaks of this world, and there's a strong stream of racist eugenicists, and it goes back to the early 20th century. See, this is the story that I know and believe, and I need extra strong information to the contrary to actually convince me otherwise. But what they were doing was research particularly into immunizing women against sperm. So if you want to do an ethnic bioweapon, what you do is, they love the V's, the vaccination. They love them. They've always loved it. Ever since Jenner, they've always loved it. It's always been fucking mysterious magic to this kind of mindset. So anything that comes out of a syringe, straight away, I'm like, oh man, I'm so. I mean, I'm as hesitant as any African American, because I'm an African American, and so, and I've seen this shit. I've lived this shit, and so anyway, my understanding is the very early eugenicists in the when eugenics was a great thing in the 30s and stuff. Don't forget, Germany got eugenics from America. The eugenics movement started in Britain with Galton. Actually, Darwin's uncle, Galton, I think his uncle, first cousin, I don't know. Anyway, close relative of um, of Darwin, and Darwinian thinking, Fisher, all those guys, they all closet eugenicists, because the minute you get onto Darwinism, it doesn't matter if you talk like Dickie Dawkins and you're gay and you're liberal and you're open-minded and stuff. You go to sleep at night and you got to say, like, Darwin says, that the inferior ones must be culled off. And so these guys from the beginning, from Darwin and Wallace, they've been telling themselves that, like, we're not having any natural selection anymore, and this is not going to be good. Basically Malthus and that Malthus was saying, you need to have the undeserving poor go through a little rough time. That it's good that these guys have to compete at the bottom, because that's the only Darwin selection that we've got. So Darwinists cannot escape their own philosophy of eugenics. Eugenics is a false philosophy. It came from the upper crust and their social views. So Darwinism is first and foremost political, and then it was misapplied to biology. That's why I did the things on the videos on Darwin was wrong, because Darwin is clearly wrong. He was enumerate. He doesn't understand systematics. He doesn't understand biology. Darwin is a fucking idiot. He's a very plodding, pedantic thinker, and the guy said at school he's thick, and then suddenly he hits on this. So the question that was bugging Victorian Englishmen was, why, if we all have Adam's apples the size of plates and we all inbred and we all squiffy and we all fucking balmy, how is it that we are the creme de la creme? And it's like that concerned Darwin. Darwin had psychosomatic illnesses. Most of his kids died in childbirth and stuff. He knew he was genetically unfit. They all knew. But it plagued them, that it was a thing of concern, is why are we top of the heap if we seem to be genetically superior? And then Darwin gave them the excuse of the century. He said, no, we must be the creme de la creme, because, that's how Darwinism works. And that's why Malthus and stuff was so popular with them. But, Malthus was right about the city. So we live in upside down world. What they teach in academia is Malthus was wrong, because tech comes along and basically gets the social bottleneck out of the way. So, there's never a Malthusian catastrophe. Malthus was wrong. And then, that's incorrect. And then Darwin goes and says, hey, Malthus, which is an urban phenomena, is saying maybe the shit that goes on in Victorian London actually goes on in the wild, and that explains so much, and it also explains that we're heroes and not villains. And so that got a lot of traction. But the truth is exactly the opposite. Is Malthus was right. Cities lead to a Malthusian catastrophe. We've got one get out of jail free card, and that's called the Haber-Bosch process. So the only technology that delayed, not prevented, but delayed the Malthusian catastrophe was making phosphates with the Haber-Bosch process. That's it.
Yeah, it was delayed by the Green Revolution, wasn't it? When I say green, I mean it's known as the Green Revolution, isn't it? The Haber-Bosch process, the making fertilizers from fossil fuels, and and stalling that Malthusian catastrophe.
But it was done almost on a credit card. If you go and look at the consequences of the Green Revolution, say in the Punjab and Africa and stuff like that, they hide all of that. They don't tell you that the advance of the Sahel, the desertification in the Sahara and stuff like that, the expanding desertification around the world, including India, they never tell kids in college that was the fault of the Green Revolution. They just paper over it and airbrush it out. But we never avoided a Malthusian catastrophe. We borrowed on a credit card. So the Malthusian catastrophe is happening now. It's happening in 2020 and onwards. And we ran a huge debt.
Oh, for sure. And the best film I thought on all of this this angle of overpopulation was that Stephen Emmett Garden, 10 Billion. That was a brilliant film. Just the graphics and the narrative in it to sort of drill home that, you know, the futility that we've got ourselves into. Yeah, the Malthusian catastrophe, because he goes into each section of, you know, the cryosphere, the biosphere, the geosphere. He just lays it all out on the table, and then at the end he's just like, yeah, we're fucked. And that's it. And they just, you know, swing the camera on the audience, but it's laid out so perfectly. It just shows exactly, and he really drills into the Green Revolution and how we just, yeah, all the resources are being just, we're in complete overshoot.
Yeah, I never saw that one. But you see, this is where you got to be careful, because when you come to the Club of Rome and the limits to growth, you see where the Macy Foundation and all these guys went to with their systemic thinking, you know, Forrester and all of these guys, they weren't particularly bad guys, but they saw what was coming. So the population bomb, the Ehrlichs wrote, and this, they saw what was coming. So they prepared since the 60s. They, you know, these guys don't sit around on their hands. They're the most proactive, active guys that you're going to meet. So, you know, to think that they just read the population bomb in the 1960s and then went back to gardening or something is crazy. You know, they foresaw all of this Malthusian catastrophe in the early part of the 20th century with the eugenicists. So all of these guys are eugenicists, and they, you know, they absolute racists. They absolutely. If you talk to them, you basically you will not get a hint of it, right? They know very well that you cannot talk that way, but if you ever with them where they feel like they're on home territory, you will see they will reveal outrageous racism. Outrageous. They think the black people are close to apes, and they don't intend them to survive. They honestly think if you know, I was told by one of the guys he said, yeah, that's basically all the wrong types. He said basically the population is increasing and all the wrong types. And basically he was he was primarily a decision theorist, right? So basically these guys think in terms of rationalism, and he thought in terms of the reason why these are Untermenschen, why they underlings, they subhumans, is because they can't be rational. So a lot of the thing you see, there's another level of dialogue that goes over academia that people miss. So in all of this stuff, like, you know, Kahneman's thinking fast and slow, and all of these things that get into the public attention, they don't realize there's they're speaking, they're doing dog whistles to each other on a very different level. And so when they say stuff like, you know, hey, these guys, you know, the average person is actually irrational, there's also the hint of and due for the gas chambers in it. So they utterly despise the irrationality of the average person, the fact that people are not, you know. So economists will say, well, people are econs, they maximize their rational self-interest and stuff. And then the psychologists come along and say, no, they're only good for a gas chamber. You know, it's kind of hidden in what they're saying, but there's subtext to all of the stuff that never comes across in the mainstream media. And nobody can hear it because they're going into this weird dialogue on race wars.
Yeah, I'd say more recently I'd noticed a few people saying even Attenborough has got hints of it, and apparently he was in some organization which, you know, fortunately there's too many of us, and, you know, maybe we should think about not having so many babies. He said it at the end of many of his documentaries.
Yeah, I mean, so you can easily put a few things together and say basically the fertility crisis and the Malthusian catastrophe and stuff. So, you know, I mean, I just say that I said before, like South Africa would have double its population now if it wasn't for AIDS. So it's like, dudes, So anyway, this is the story that I know. That these guys were doing experiments into how to immunize African women against sperm, so that they would have a fertility crisis, and they wouldn't even know. How would you even know if you passed that around? So that was their original thinking, I think. In the process of doing experiments on baboons, I think, and monkeys, they got the crossover from SIV to HIV, and so that it was during those experiments that they had an accidental crossover to HIV. That's the story as I know it. And then it was propagated in the Congo deliberately, and it was propagated later by Wouter Besson and all these guys. They carried on, and that's all official. Nobody contests that the apartheid government deliberately spread AIDS. But they were thinking in those times of social mores. So they were thinking in terms of people. They're thinking in terms of these people are rational, they're moral, they're freaking animals, they just copulate with anything. So the obvious thing is, you get a sexually transmitted disease, and it's wonderful because, it's anybody that's promiscuous, sexual, and basically a troglodyte with doing immoral things like homosexuality, and that it's a self-curing problem because all the derelicts will have sex with each other and wipe themselves out. And that's the way they thought about it. And so, okay, that's kind of 1930s thinking, but like fast forward to after Hitler. So Hitler made eugenics absolutely abhorrent. So after Hitler, that was the end. You read official kind of stories about eugenics. They all end in 1945 and say, well, no, it carried on. They're still sterilizing people in Georgia. I think there was 1974 was the last.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, that's definitely right. Yeah, I've heard that. There's numerous stories. About exactly that.
But the mainstream idea, I think, in academia is that the eugenics movement became untenable and died out after 1945. It didn't do anything of the sort. It went underground as genomics. So if you hear anybody has something with gene in the thing, something with anything with the word, the stem, gen, you can bet that they're closet eugenicists. The guys that go into that are guys that get freaked out about the population bomb and stuff like that. So you fast forward to the modern tech, and what the hell are they going to do? They're going to splice together to make the dream weapon of the ages is a bioweapon that's airborne. So basically, airborne HIV is what they would do. It's exactly what they would do. So the fact that now we have all of this stuff, it's just like, oh man, I can't shut up anymore. I just got to tell people, just avoid this thing like crazy. So I mean, if I'm wrong, what do you lose? Christmas? It's like
sorry. So
better off losing Christmas.
Yeah. So I just wanted to try and get this line of thought straight. And I mean, I haven't been following so much on XRMed lately, but are you thinking that this was a happy coincidence that the G variant and is some kind of chimera, or are you still going along that line that it's a chimera, or you just?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. You see, I think I give them the benefit of the doubt that the Wuhan lab leak is accidental, and the G variant is probably in somebody with HIV and probably untreated HIV in Africa, and so it's accidental. But here's the thing: both of these, I'm looking all the time if they have any kind of heritage or something. So I can't figure out exactly how close they are. They're both RNA. So HIV is a retrovirus. It goes through the cell wall. The SARS gain of function 2, it attaches to the ACE2 receptor. So to attach to the ACE2 receptor, it needs the furin cleavage site. That is unquestionably engineered artificially. So it was in the early, they knew about the furin cleavage site. They didn't invent it. They just took it from one of its ancestors and propagated forward into the alpha strain. That is unquestionable. We'd need a lot of evidence to refute that. Clearly, they're doing gain of function research. All the gain of function research is dual purpose. They say it's so we can detect the next variant. Well, of course, that's nonsense. There's infinite amount of combinations you can make. It's rubbish to try and say you'll try and predict it. And also, what makes that argument completely vacuous is the fact is they never did any vaccines. So they did all the thing. They have early copies of this bug on the shelf, and yet they don't have any vaccines. So it's like, come on, guys. What the hell are you doing this gain of function for? What end? And they all know what it is. It's bioweapons research. You see, it's two things. One of them is they're scared shitless that the other guys are doing it. The reason why you will never get them to stop doing bioweapons research is the same reason as mutually assured destruction, and why they could never get arms reduction during the Cold War in nuclear arms. It's because it's the problem of verifiability. Is they've learned from practice, they've learned from measles, they've learned from all of these things, that the guys carry on doing it in practice. So they all know that they're all doing it in secret. So they can't stop doing this, because if you go to war and then one side deploys it, you got to retaliate. And so they have to do the research just because they can't trust each other. So you're never going to get rid of this. And so, but what's crazy is that it's obvious that America's doing what they did in South Africa. America, Israel, all these scumbags, they're offshoring their dirty work to this unrestricted environment. Like South Africa was isolated and radical, and China, you can do fucking anything. So they send all these things into these open environments that are unrestricted to do their worst research. And so, but they must know that half of this is being funneled off to the PLA and stuff like that. They must know that, China takes all technology and takes the intellectual property. So it's like they must know that it's kind of a dangerous game, that you're giving as much as you're getting. But they've worked it out in their heads that somehow it all makes sense, and they all know what they're doing. But clearly, it's one lab leak away from disaster, and I think that's what's happened. Now, the thing is, if it combines with something in Africa, right? If it combines with HIV in Africa, what it means is it would account for why it's so infectious, because the AIDS is a retrovirus and gets through the cell wall, as I understand, and then you have the ACE2 receptor and the furin cleavage site. Together, they make a very, very sticky little bug. And so the main thing is T cells and it hijacking the immune system. So if they work together, so that one is airborne and highly infectious and carries the kind of lock and key to hijack your immune system, there are a couple of things I'm not so clued up on it, but I think there's a thing called D4 and D8. I think the cells that HIV attacks, and I think the same is true with this with the G variant. So it's like those are the kind of things you want to watch, but it would make a world of sense if this the transmissibility comes from SARS, and the damage comes from HIV and compromising your immune system. So that accounts for the fact that it's so hard to stop, and why the jabs work and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's...
And why it evolved so quickly.
Sorry. I think the other thing that's bugging me slightly is that although, because all the news out of Africa, at least in the UK, was that it's way more transmissible. The numbers are going through the roof now here in the UK every day. It's like, doubling. But they were saying, but, that could be good news, because that means it's, it's becoming more endemic. It's becoming milder. So it's adapting so that it can become more like the common cold or the flu. And yet, yeah, a lot of there's scientific advisors of government are like, no, like we need to, we still don't know. Like, it's like, so they're worried that, because they haven't got the data yet, because originally they thought they'd broken the link between, serious disease and hospitalization and all of that through the vaccines. But now they're like, oh, no, we need to be ultra cautious. And I don't know, there's something about the way they're reacting. I don't know, you could just say, well, that's just them being the same as they always have been, like over the top, because they only have to get it wrong once. But then none of that really matters anyway if it's a chimera. I don't know. It's so confusing, like the way they're reacting.
Yeah, I must admit that I'm confused too. But okay, so first of all, on this thing about, oh, this is becoming endemic, I think the guys are reading from the wrong playbook. You see, where this comes from is, if you study immunology, one of the first things they tell you in college is that that viruses tend to become endemic because it's not in the virus' interest to kill off the host. Okay, so that is
exactly
the general trend. Yeah, so that's the general trend, and that's the way most pandemics go, because dead people are not good at transmitting diseases. Somebody that's lightly infected and is running around town, yeah, get the picture. Everybody that's had the jabs and is overconfident running around challenge. It's like, yeah, that's the way the virus wants you to do. So the virus wants. So where basically, and they're thinking in terms of Darwinism again, is they think that that they all wind up evolving to a point where they kind of the herpes of, basically all viruses want to be herpes. They want to be like, they want you to propagate them by using your cellular mechanism, but they don't want to completely incapacitate you or disable you. They want you running around spreading them. And so, basically the Nash equilibrium in this game is herpes. It's basically, you can never get rid of them, but basically they don't kill you. And then it's like, that's a marriage made in hell. For the virus's point of view, a marriage made in heaven. So that's where they all want to go, and that's what immunologists are told in college. Here's why they're reading off the wrong script, is because this is not that trajectory. Viruses are not supposed to go and get 50 mutations and then come back with as one of the most, Daily Mail or something said, one of the most infectious diseases ever known. So I'm not sure that's true, but I mean, it sounds like it's got an R value of about 6, which puts it around measles. So it's like that is not that trajectory. So the reason why viruses are supposed to get there is by slow mutations, by SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms. They're supposed to get there in tiny little increments, get slowly, evolve towards endemicity. But they're not supposed to suddenly go nuts, right? So then they're completely misreading it, saying, okay, this will. So there's a couple of things they're missing here. One of them is that this thing does not replace the old variants, right? So this already has 3 mutations in the UK. So it's like, that's the first thing. The second thing is this is just like HIV-1, is everybody's walking around spreading it before they get hit and die. So in other words, you've got 3-4 weeks to spread the virus. The virus doesn't need any more than that. It says, thank you very much, and spits you out like garbage, sends you to the ICU to die, and carries on. It only needs you to do what it has got. It's basically this long period, which is unusual in these particularly deadly things. Most of these things, if you go back to 1918 and stuff like that, people drop in their clogs hours after they catch the disease. So the postman knocks on the door, he gives you your Amazon parcel, you take out your cold cut meats, you stick them in your mouth. 3 hours later, you drop. So that's normally the trajectory. That when they say, oh, they become endemic, they mean that, that's not very good for the virus, because whatever virus you got drops with you. See, but what happens over time and elongates. But now these are horrors. These viruses are horrors, and they have all the hallmarks of somebody that wanted to make a horror, because they stick around you with 4 weeks. That you walk around asymptomatically, and nothing happens. Now the only way that can happen is if they're fucking with your immune system. So they've evaded your immune system or hacked your immune system, and that's the trick that all of these things pull. I mean, the HIV type thing. So if it's a retrovirus that hacks your immune system, that old shit that they teach you in college doesn't apply. It doesn't apply that now they all become endemic. It doesn't need to. It's got you by the balls. It's got the deep state in you. It's got the means to fucking trade your innermost sanctum and fuck you over. So
because the bioweapons research has changed the game. It's changed it's like accelerated through the gain of function research. It's changed. You've added a new vector or new layer of complexity to it. Is that what you're saying?
Not quite. Their goal is to get something that's highly transmissive and has certain characteristics. What they settled on was the fact that if it can hack your immune system, you pretty well can't defend against it. So if you're looking for a bioweapon, you don't want something that your body can defeat quickly, and then the enemy can quickly get some immune system and inoculate everybody against it. So you want something that's really hard, that really escapes, and can evade your immune system. Now, your immune system is pretty fucking good at picking shit up and flushing it out. But if it starts hacking the very cells, the T cells and the very cells that you use in to mount a defense, right? Then you're in real fucking trouble. If those are the ones it's going after, that's considered a real foul in this war of virology. So yeah, that's considered a really low move in the battle. But this is clearly what HIV has done, and this is what apparently this SARS has done too. So, and I don't think by accident. I think that they evolved it, so they mutated it. And they keep on finding shit like, hey, this looks very close to something that came out of a rat. This looks very close to something that came out of a monkey. Oh, you mean all the model animals that they use in these labs? It's like, come on, guys. There's no fucking pangolins or bats anywhere near it until the first versions that you got 13 years ago. Then you clearly see that somebody's developing. It's all in the history of this genome. And so they've got to the point where they have something that evades your immune system, so it's a perfect bioweapon because it spreads like crazy. And then the negative effects are far down the road. If the primary effect of this is that it makes you immunocompromised, it means that it'll take a long time before they connect, before the average Joe, you and me, connects the fact that there are a lot of people dying of weird comorbidities. So what happens is your body is fighting off cancers and prions and all this hemoglobin clotting stuff like this all the time. It's probably flushing out this entropy. So what happens if you if you had a pandemic of the immunocompromised? It would manifest as very strange shit. Basically, your body is filled with all those horrible viruses that would basically get you quarantined by the CDC if they ever took off. But they've looked in people's mouths in New York and shit and they've been horrified to find Marburg's disease and all things that they thought would be stuff that you should immediately shut off Manhattan with. But they found that although these things exist in very low volume and they're not everybody's immune system can keep them at bay. And that is apparently what happens. But what it means is there is an enemy within. And if you get immunocompromised, all these weird diseases pop out. So imagine this in a socio-political environment. It's suddenly all these weird fucking diseases are popping up all over the place because people are immunocompromised. What it would look like is a full-on, bioweapons war. And so it could just be by mistake that everybody would misread, saying like, oh, well, the next thing is Marburg's or some Ebola or some shit like that. And then you say, well, okay, this is a bioweapons war. There's no ways that all of these pandemics can be coming so thick and fast. And, well, they could be if the primary thing was immunodeficiency. Now, the key, I think, that gives the game away is your body's fighting off cancers all the time. So the key from the AIDS epidemic was particularly in the gay community, they dropped like flies from weird cancers that the guys very seldom saw. They would suddenly start popping up. And that was the first clue during the 80s that something really funky was going on, because they thought, first of all, that weird shit coming through the door in these clinics. And then slowly they realized that they were all from one demographic. It was mainly young, gay, sexually active guys in clubs. And then they found, intravenous drug users sharing needles, and then they found homophiliacs and stuff. So they eventually pinned it down, but it took years and years. So I just don't buy into this thing that, oh, this is the end of the pandemic, because this thing tears round. There's another thing they're missing, is they're thinking in terms of immunity, herd immunity. They think it tears round and then it's over because we got herd immunity, and say, guys, just look at the fucking papers that are coming out. They're telling you there's no herd immunity. What the fuck are you talking about? This tears around and then it's over. So that would only happen if we had immunity. We don't have immunity because it's hacking people's immune systems. So you can't get immunity to this. And it doesn't displace the other variants. They're just fucking accumulative. How the fuck do we get to indemnity, you fucking idiots? Never listen to the experts. They're full of shit, right? They're absolutely chock full of shit. Because of that, they all know little scraps. Look, let me tell you something about experts, right? It's well worth having a good old fucking hack at experts. So, and then, Ryan, you're on this call. Yeah, Ryan's there. So I think Ryan's there. So Ryan will know all about this. So I don't know jack shit about virology. What I know is from something parallel, and that's systems theory. It's like when you work with computers and stuff, and you have computer viruses. That's not entirely an analogy. If you worked in cybersecurity and stuff, it's the same as virology. You know exactly what virologists know. You just know it from computers, but it's the same shit. Now, what I think Ryan will tell you is if you work with all these kind of AI machines and stuff like that, they're basically AI working towards a goal is very much like your immune system, working towards a goal. And so there are these concepts, these well-known concepts of say what neural nets do. And one of them is, it's called overfitting the data. So it means if you get a neural net and you try and give it a bit of AI, you train it. You've got to give it a training set. So you give it a whole, database full of pictures of black people, and then it's supposed to, basically, when you present a picture of a gorilla, it's supposed to make the connection. So now here's the problem. Overfitting the data means that it's not general enough, so that when you give it a picture of a gorilla, that it makes a picture to a black couple. You have to, it just says, you've got this database of black couples that you used as a training set, then it would just say, okay, if you give me one of those pictures, I get it right every single time, but I'm not good at generalizing beyond my training set. And then that doesn't look very smart. It looks dumb, in fact, and then that's called overfitting the data. Now, experts do that all the fucking time. That's kind of what experts' job is in a way. I'll give you an example. I might have told you this before, but it's very apropos here. It's like when when I first came to London, then I had a lot of money, and I had a girlfriend that liked wine, and so we got really into wine. Complete amateurs, but enthusiasts. And we went to wine tastings and got into and bought so much fucking wine that basically we eventually got on the professional circuit, right? Completely outsiders, but we were a lot of fun and people liked us. So they permitted us to get into all these things that only negotiants and traders and shit got into, but it was cool as hell because they live a very nice life, those guys. Anyway, we went into this blind tasting. Somebody invited us like a fool to this blind tasting with these professionals, guys from Decanter magazine and fucking experts, right? So we go along to this thing as rank amateurs. Well, we knew, we could identify the common wines in a blind tasting. We could identify Sancerre and, this and that, but common shit, right? So we went into this blind tasting and we cleaned their fucking clock. They were absolutely fucking furious, pissed beyond belief, because these couple of yuppies who know nothing were just brought in there for a bit of entertainment and good humor, and then we fucking cleaned their clock. And this is the reason why. Is how do a couple of noobs wipe all the experts? And it's easy. It's because of overfitting the data. What they would do is they would sip the wine and then they would all confuse each other. You can see the guys doing this with the virology and stuff. You can see this guy's doing this in print. Is they all go, hey guys, I remember this. It reminds me of this Indian champagne, that is just on the south side. And me and my girlfriend are like, Indian champagne? We never knew that India did champagne. And they would all get into an argument on, is it this from this south slope or that side? And we'd go like, fuck, I never heard about Indian champagne. It sounds like Pinot Grigio to me, and so I'm just going to go with Pinot Grigio. Of course we were right. Do you honestly these guys are fucking stupid. Do you honestly think that the guys that did this blind tasting went around India and collected rare champagnes and of course they didn't. They went down to the local fucking odd bins and got a selection of all the fucking common wines you're going to come across. And that's what the wines that we knew as amateurs. So we got all of them right. And none of the guys thought like, what are the chances that this fucking thing actually comes from, Africa, or, basically the arse end of Africa. That's the rarest known thing. It's like, there was zero chance of it. But they would all fuck each other up and get zero in a blind tasting. And so that's called overfitting of the data. And you see, that's what you see. I always wanted to be, and am, to a large extent, a kind of a Vincent D'Amaro character. The Vincent D'Amaro character is, and I recommend everybody to start thinking this way. Vincent D'Amaro is the great imposter. Tony Curtis did this movie called it was done by DiCaprio as well, by another guy, but on the same mold. They're all true stories. DiCaprio did the Imposter, I think. What was it? What was the recent one with DiCaprio where he was a pilot and all that? But it was true.
It was the film, wasn't it, with Tom Hanks as well, wasn't it? I know who you mean. Yeah. He was a fraud, wasn't he? And he did all the check fraud, didn't he? In the 60s or 70s.
Yeah, but so Vincent D'Amaro and the Great Imposter with Tony Curtis and stuff. He was a real guy, and he bluffed his way into, I think, being a ship surgeon, and did surgeries, successful surgeries on guys, and he was just a rank amateur. So I always liked that kind of thing. My dad told me once of a story about that he knew of this guy who was just, I guess, a homeless guy, but kind of a lot like I've done. Is just like, he just curious, goes down back alleys and into places where you don't do. Basically, goes into the gray zone. And he apparently wound up in some French ministry, went through an open door or something like that, was open on the street, just curious, and found him. I think he went and sat down at a desk, and somebody came up to him and said, and gave him a file and said, like, I don't know, go and tabulate this, or pull out all the people's names that begin with F or something. And so he just did it. And the next thing you know, he was sitting in this desk and people were coming and giving him work. He made his own job. He just came in, literally, he found a door cracked open and just came in, took over an office. I think he eventually got to having a salary, and eventually they found, like 10 years later or something, they found this guy was a complete imposter, and everybody knew him. He had made his own thing, his own salary, everything, just by going on off people's expectations, kind of like this mad monk kind of thing. And that fascinated me. So I looked at cases like this, and Vincent Amara and these guys were like that. And I looked into how did they pull it off? How did they do it? And I tried doing stuff. I found that it was quite easy to bluff your way, because you see, what the experts are doing is they know bits and pieces that they've collected. Most of it's out of date. For example, they know shit like, oh, viruses all become endemic. This is some piece of shit that they collected out of college and stuff. And they're working off all these fragments that are mostly out of date, and they all have groupthink, and they're all full of shit. Now, somebody can come in fresh, and in one day, especially now with the internet, you can do a complete survey of all the available information. You can look at all the latest data, and you can easily exceed the experts in a couple of days, because their stuff is stale and they're prejudiced, they're lazy. They're all going off, old shit. And then, some guy who was a virologist, tore my throat out at the beginning of this, because I said, okay, this thing is going to mutate like a ninja. And I basically completely, nailed exactly the trajectory of the pandemic. I think I'm batting 100% for what I said right at the beginning. And now this guy, who is obviously an expert, said he's an expert in virology and stuff. And he said, you're talking absolute shit. You know fuck all about virology, on and on and on. He said, RNA viruses do not mutate. Well, the reason why I said it's going to mutate like a ninja is I just read a paper that morning that it said, trying to bone up on it, it said RNA viruses don't mutate very fast. The reason is they're normally short and there's not enough material to actually mutate. The one exception is SARS viruses. They have huge numbers of base pairs in the tens of thousands. And so they mutate relatively fast. So SARS viruses are an exception. And then I went and had a look at what this new virus did, and it had 30,000 base pairs. So, well, this is going to mutate like a ninja. See, now I've instantly bested an expert. Why? Because he's going off some stale information that his college professor told him 15 years ago. So he's stuck. But you can easily go and figure out the landscape. You can find out all the controversies in the domain, find out what all the latest stuff is, and they fat lazy asses. And so they're full of their own self-importance and haven't kept up to date. So you can often run circles around them, especially on the details, right? So the guys might be able to do better than you overall, and they can do better than you when there really is a champagne from India on from the south-facing hill in the Punjab. Yeah, then they're going to nail you. But that isn't the way the world works. 80% of the punts that come down the road are straight down the middle, right? So 80% of the pictures are common or garden, straight down the middle pitches. So you can easily get them and best them, and that's the story with experts. So don't trust an expert. Don't trust the science. You got to know how to basically fit the data yourself. And anyway, you see, all of these guys are siloed. They sit in virology in a little cocoon. They don't know about the real world. They don't know about how the political landscape works. So if you're a generalist, then you've got loads of other models. You know how it works in computing, in social network theory, and all of this stuff. You've got so many things to draw on that you start to get patterns. They have no patterns. They have spotty information that comes from the spotty education. So they have little pieces of puzzle and pegs to hang things on. They have no coherent vision or model. So if you have a coherent vision, if you know how it works in computers, you can bet your ass that basically if you know it works like this in music or some other thing, you can say, yeah, I know, I'll bet it works like this in music. I'll be fucking amazed if it doesn't work like that in virology. And then you can clean the clocks of a virologist. Everybody says, oh, well, he's got a Nobel Prize in that. And so like, I can tell you straight away, if he's got a Nobel Prize, he's worth shit. And that's how it works with the experts.
So although most of the experts can't see the wood for the trees, for want of a better description, surely you could argue the sort of government advisors are the ones at the top. I mean, some of them, I mean, well, they always look a bit worried and concerned and a bit weird. I mean, maybe some of those guys do know then what you're saying. I don't know. I wonder.
Yeah. You see, okay, so this is where experts are useful. So there's a lot of evidence that if you use them collectively, you can't listen to one. You see, what the journalists are spreading bullshit, because what they do is they're trying to be sensational. They get some snippet of information that looks like, oh, this is newsworthy. Then they phone up 3 or 4 sources, and then they ask them, and the guys, guide them a little bit. And so then they can say, how they let them know how sensational they can be without losing credibility, more or less. Now, that's not the way to use experts. The way to use experts is to make them all do a blind estimate. If they all do a blind estimate, you're very likely in aggregate to get very, very accurate. Now, this is something Thomas Galton, talking about Thomas Galton, this is something he found out about. It was the wisdom of crowds. Basically, it's James Surowiecki and all of those guys. Thomas Galton's famous thing was he went and there was a country fair in England, and there was a kind of guess the weight of the sheep or whatever it was, bull or something, cider mutton, whatever. Anyway, it's something that all farmers would be pretty good at. And they all had a punt at it. So Thomas Galton did something really unusual. He asked for all the tickets, all the guesses, which most people would not be interested in, all the losing guesses. And he figured out, well, they must be in a normal distribution, because all the guys that went into the competition must be farmers, they must be experts. And so it was, how are their guesses distributed? And he found that it was in normal distribution, a bell curve. And the amazing thing was that the average guess was, grams out from the true weight. So in other words, as a collective, with the wisdom of crowds, the collective was amazingly accurate, and that's kind of a good rule of thumb. I think another one, I think they found the Thresher, one was a submarine that went down, and I think also the Glomar Explorer pulled up a Russian submarine, which I know a bit about it. I think the way that they got that was they got various experts in different fields to say where they thought that the submarine went down. Then they plotted all of those, took an average, and the average was very, very close. So if you can take, but here's the thing. You mustn't let experts talk to each other. If they talk to each other, they fuck each other up. So that's what the thing about the Indian champagne is. Once they start seeding each other, they automatically go off on a tangent. So getting a committee of experts is a fucking fatal flaw.
Yeah, so that's impossible then, because they're all blooming well listening to each other and talking to each other the whole time. There's just so much content and information just bombarding us. It's just, yeah, and I mean, they, more than anyone, is probably looking over their shoulder at what the next guy is estimating, because they're being asked every day by the media, aren't they? So.
Yeah, and they're collaborating. But so the thing is to not let them collaborate. You see, if Galton got all the farmers and allowed them to discuss it in a room, then when they came to a collective decision, they'd be fucking way off. But it's only the fact that they're working independently that the effect works, and the wisdom of crowds actually works. So the first thing is you've got to take all of these guys separately. They can't collude and work together and work on a committee and come out with an expert opinion. You know straight away if that's the source of the data, it's crap. You know automatically.
I think this is
So,
actually a larger
if you were
problem.
Boris Johnson,
A larger problem than just
go on.
for experts. I
I
think
was hoping you would speak. Go on, speak.
yeah. So when you think about how collusion works for us let's say we get into a habit of whenever we're unsure of something, we Google it or we use a search engine, then essentially that's the same thing as a collusion process where any of the cognitive diversity to solve novel problems we'll be out of the habit of doing that, and we'll all essentially have monoculture thinking, and that means that the errors will now self-reinforce and make it so that they get to higher and higher rankings, and essentially this is the algorithms that we computer scientists make have enormous deleterious effects on society, like where we've unified and centralized thought making process to the point where it's easy to manipulate, and it's highly sensitive to errors throwing it off track. And this is across most of our thought process. And where this gets really you know dangerous is this is how that self-reinforcing process that leverages the algorithms has invaded the journalistic process. So as you were speaking about journalists before, the the way that typically works is that there's like a small article on some blog somewhere, and then uh, the then another journalist from a larger thing picks it up, and then they start quoting each other, and it gets larger and larger to the point where now there are all these authoritative sources that you can quote, but they're all just um, it all just, if you go all the way back down the chain to where the story originated, the original story was total garbage, but it just leveraged a lot of the authority of these other institutions along the way to get to the point where it's on the evening news. And this is you could hardly build a system that would be easier to manipulate. Like it is about the easiest thing there is. And before, with the journalism, you had subscription revenue and these kinds of things, where you could do some journalistic foray into an actual, doing some research, like he was suggesting. Um, but now it's all about the rapidity and the single article clicks. So you need to do it's now shifted towards what is the most exciting and clickbaity type of thing, and uh, so there is no subscription revenue anymore, and it creates a dynamic where it's like a feeding frenzy on whatever the latest whatever thing they can find. Like, new science article says that chocolate can help you lose weight or something, and then everybody writes an article about it. And it's the that kind of when you look at a systems theory level of thinking about these things and the information architecture, how these things reinforce each other or flow through the network of people, you start to realize there are flaws in the way science is designed as well, and the journal and article system there. So, like, across all of these systems that we have as the software in our society, we've got systems that, even with the best of intentioned people, will magnify errors and lead towards monoculture, and away from the stated goal of the institution, whether science is to pursue truth or journalism is to pursue pursue truth in another way, but it gets very far from those goals because of how we've architected the software. And this is something that the university system does not teach us in computer science. We don't learn these systemic thinking things. We're the people building the plumbing of these social architectures, and all we're interested in is can we make Google more money, or how can we're spending all of our brain cells on how to get people to click on ads and stuff, and not thinking about what are the consequences for the whole of society. So we're all living in one giant experiment led by people who have no idea what they're doing,
like Larry Page and stuff like that. But yeah, one of the things that you must really challenge as an individual is common knowledge. So one of the blind spots that really emerges a lot is people, everybody knows. So everybody knows, that's common knowledge. It's just taken for granted. If you actually drill down on those, you find that basically they were lazy consensus, and they come from all bizarre things. So the things fall through the crack. This is particularly relevant for the flippening and for the methane dragon. You often just get personalities like Michael E. Mann, and he might make a simple comment like, well, I don't think that the methane thing was actually proven. And then somebody repeats that as, the methane, the Clathrate gun hypothesis is not really a fact. And then it's very soon it becomes, everybody knows that the Clathrate gun hypothesis has been debunked. And if you actually go back and say, hang on a minute, let's go all the way back to Michael Mann. What did he actually say? And what he was talking in a different context about a different fucking aspect of the problem. And you realize that it hasn't been debunked at all. It's just everybody thought it is and doesn't question it. So there's a lot of famous examples of this that will not die. One of them is that quickly comes to mind is V.S. Ramachandran. V.S. Ramachandran, as a joke, other people have done this too. There've been, I can't remember the guy that did it, but he did it. He was told that he can't do it with a single author, and then he included his cat as one of the co-authors, but it was completely junk science, to try and show up the peer review process and show up how reference is not a good thing to do in terms of papers, scientific papers. But basically, he just put his cat down as Dr. Scratch, and I can't remember his name, but anyway, that's a famous thing to look up. But V.S. Ramachandran did it too. V.S. Ramachandran wanted to show how ridiculous and racist all of these guys were. So he did this paper, this spoof paper. It was a joke, and what it said was that women have white skin because it's to signal their genetic health. Because what it's doing is it's showing you that what they're advertising in terms of natural selection to mates is that they can't fake that they have a bad liver. So it's basically saying they don't have hepatitis or any kind of liver disease. And the way they signal that to mates is, they have a lily white skin. It was complete horseshit. And he knew it. But, you will see that as quoted as absolute gospel, that the reason why people have white skins is because of this thing. And it's over and over again. It's absolutely became entrenched as an article of faith that everybody, every scientist knows that that's the reason why. And I've told people that said, that was a spoof, and they absolutely don't believe me. And eventually you go and say, here, Ramachandran said this is why he did it. He said it was just done as a joke. They absolutely flawed. So but to Ryan's point that this is being manipulated like fuck. It's not only being manipulated online. Everybody's known this since Eddie Bernays and stuff. So that I told you once about the Coca-Cola company, is that like my nephew and stuff is obsessed, because he's big into fitness and stuff, obsessed about this, that you're supposed to have endless, I can't remember how many liters a day, like something ridiculous, like 8 liters of water a day. And it's like, it's crap. It's absolute crap. What was done was when Coca-Cola brought out Dasani, they did all these fake studies to say that people weren't hydrating enough. And you will still, it's still a pandemic. It's basically that meme has become endemic, where you still see fitness and the importance of hydration. It's like nobody went on about the importance of hydration until Coke came out with all these fucking fake studies just to try and make people drink more bottled water. And so you know, I told my nephew that, like, you know, that all of this comes from bogus research that was funded by Coke. He won't believe me. He's spending, because his whole life he's been teaching other people that you must dehydrate. It's important to have, you know, 8 glasses of water, whatever the damn thing metric was that I can't remember. And
yeah,
so
it's 8 glasses of water a day. It is eight glasses of water a day or something, or eight pints of water.
8 glasses.
People
So
are
that 8 glasses of water
filling
comes
up
from
the blooming canteens at the water cooler, like loads of them. All these young people are absolutely obsessed. Oh, I need to drink. I make sure I drink my 8 liters a day. 8 pints.
It all comes from some fake studies that were done by Coke a couple of decades ago. Until then, nobody had ever heard about this. They've actually done counter studies where doctors have tried to tell people, you know, stop this shit about hydration and 8 cups of it's basically, it's giving people renal failure. Saying like, this is, say basically, you know exactly how much water to have because of thirst. Right. So sure, you can exercise and get into some kind of exercise. If you're an Olympic athlete, it's not if you're some twat on a bicycle that does, you know, a couple of kilometers around the block. It's like, come on. But anyway, these studies are done over and over again. And there's another one that you'll hear endless amounts of people quote, that red hair is dying out. Red hair is being selected against, and soon there will be no redheads left. And so that is quoted by, you know, guys on lecterns and stuff in conferences and taken as completely unquestioned official thing. It's absolutely bogus. It came from L'Oreal. L'Oreal came out with some, you know, protein for red hair coloring or whatever. And so they funded about 20 studies to say, you know, there is red hair dying out. And of course, just by, you know, cherry picking, they found one group said, yes, red hair is reducing. And so then they, you know, seeded that in the journals and stuff, got it published, and it just won't die. Yeah, it's complete horseshit. The red hair is not going anywhere. But you can hear people will absolutely tell you, scientists, you know, doctors, they will tell you that absolutely that red hair is dying out. And you say, like, you know, this was all bogus. And you see, they can't believe it, because if that is true, that could mean everything they know is bullshit. And I say, yes, hallelujah, we finally got there. It's like,
I've got one.
Anyway, we've been.
I've got one. It's masks. So at the start of the pandemic, all the experts were on TV saying, no, there's no evidence that really shows one way or the other whether or not masks work. And then that just slowly changed. And, you know, then it was like, yeah, actually, you do need them for masks and for shots. And then when you say to people, well, there's no evidence either way, and then you keep seeing, oh, there is a study now that says, oh, maybe they do actually, you know, a little bit more on balance, it's worth it. And so when you question people that are keen on wearing masks, you know, they'll say, oh, yeah, but, you know, surely it's better, like, for the risks and stuff. It's like, surely it's just like trying to trap flies with barbed wire fence. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm barking up the tree here. Yeah. Maybe you all disagree with me, but I mean, that is something that has become like something that now people are like, they feel like that's going to protect them. And fair enough, that each to their own. But I just don't feel like everybody should be made to wear a freaking mask. But now that's changed. You know, you have to. Like, everywhere you go, it's really hard. I got on an aeroplane the other week I went up to Scotland, and I wore an exemption badge, and it was fine on the way. But on the way back, I got challenged in the queue, even though I had an exemption badge. And the lady was like saying, oh, you need a doctor's note, you know. I said, I don't. I said, I used your booking system. And it freaking well said, well, you just need to tell us that you are exempt. And she said, okay. And she went and checked the booking. And I was like, yeah, there you go. Okay, on you go, sir. It was just like completely nonsensical. But yeah.
Yeah, there are a couple of good things there. One is challenge it, but yeah, what I do as a rule of thumb is I try and use my own kind of wit and try and figure out stuff. So I came to the conclusion that masks might stop you like sneezing on people. I guess that's not cool, but I mean, as for protection, I I I I went into a shop in Greece here, and everybody was smoking. And as soon as they were smoking cigars, and as soon as I walked through the door, I was like completely hit by this wall of cigar smoke. So I thought, okay, I went and had a look at like how big are the droplets, and it was like 6 microns for the virus. I thought, okay, well, what from tobacco smoke? What is it? It was something like 60 microns. So it's like if to actually stop the virus, if it's circulating in the air, it would have to be 10 times more effective than smoke, and it doesn't stop the smoke. You can just you just walk with a mask in front of a woman that has a lot of perfume on or anything, and those perfume molecules that are hanging in the air are much bigger than the virus. So so unless it stops you getting the load or something like that, but
Yeah,
I think
like you take a big waft of cigar smoke, you're getting a full fucking load there.
yeah, this was always the thing with the social distance thing that's complete nonsense, because it's an aerosol viral particle that's going all over the place in the atmosphere, as you say. Like the molecules of perfume are way bigger than that. And I agree, yeah, if someone was actually coughing and spluttering and symptomatic, then yeah, that would be a good case to bang a mask on them. And that's, I think, what the doctors said. But
if the virus is suspended in a water droplet, then that should be caught by the mask. But it's I imagine it doesn't catch all of them in water droplets.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, if it got caught in a water droplet, then the water droplet dies. Like, are you sure that the RNA virus gets destroyed when the water droplet dies?
No, I mean it would be held to the mask by surface tension on the water droplet.
Yeah, okay, but if the water droplet evaporates,
yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
well then you've got the mask right against your face, and it's like, I don't know, man.
was at
I
the
see
start.
a lot of voodoo here.
Remember all the cruise ships at the start of the pandemic, and that was all supposed to have been locked down. Everyone was in their cabins, and yet the way it was spreading was through the air conditioning system, wasn't it? I think. I mean, it was a cruise ship, so maybe that's not a good example because it's already a pretty closed environment. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying. Like, yeah, if someone was coughing and sputtering and it's all in water droplets, that does make sense. But generally, what do people do? If you see someone who's coughing and spluttering, even before the pandemic, you would move away from them. Or if you were coughing and spluttering, you put your hand over your mouth, get a tissue out, wouldn't you? I just don't buy it. I don't know. I think it's just a way of controlling people more, I find.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these things, they are to give a semblance of control. You guys have to sound knowledgeable. They have to sound doing something. They have to sound proactive because the public demands it. So, but they might just be doing as much as they were doing in the Black Plague when they had, potpourri and stuff, and they used scents and stuff to keep the plague away. In fact, I'm not sure that that didn't keep the plague away. I mean, we completely ridicule our ancestors, but that they had a miasma theory of how disease was spread and stuff, and then now, doctors and stuff are taught that miasma theory is complete horseshit and absolutely batshit crazy, and everybody laughs at how stupid people were back in the day. Except, of course, that a 6 micron virus floating around is a miasma. It is exactly what they said. They nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. So why we laugh at them for the miasma theory, I'm not really sure, because the mask is there to protect you from miasma. And then when you those plague doctors with the long beaks filled with scented potpourri and stuff, and then we're all supposed to laugh at them, thinking, "Oh, that was so ridiculous." They thought scents could keep it away. It's like, well, we're doing the same shit with masks. I'm not so sure that this, I do the fucking test before you start laughing at the guys. Go, I'm sure you'll be surprised. I'm sure you'll find that actually nice smelling things might counteract virus. You don't really know. There might be some properties there. History is replete with stuff where people actually go and look at shit and they're like, hey, actually, these guys were not as dumb as you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sort of thing to say on all of that is that I remember right back at the start of the pandemic as well. They said, there are guys who are in the ICU dealing with people who are highly infectious. There's a whole rigmarole they have to go for.
Yeah, actually, I want to have a Ryan. Unless you want to say something, I want to have a little rant on this point. A large part of this is sheepish kind of trust in authorities. So people are scared and they play into this as almost like a Salem witch thing. It's basically a collective delusion where they do this self-reinforcing thing. It's kind of a sadomasochistic reliance on authority, Stockholm syndrome, and all this laid in. Okay, so I want to tell you a little story here. It's like the public at large thinks that hospitals are wonderful places and stuff, and they all the pride, as I was saying earlier in the last meeting, is like they think that they're all wonderful things, and you criticize modern medicine, healthcare, and hospitals, you might as well just piss on motherhood and apple pie. So I'm telling you, like, I've never bought into this fetish about the healthcare fetish. That's the real epidemic, and I'd say the most dangerous epidemic, far more dangerous than the virus, is the epidemic of trust in the healthcare system. So I'll tell you this story. That's an anecdote from my life. Is my son is only alive today because I'm a fucking bullshit bastard. So I'm telling you this because you gotta not trust authority. You gotta be a bullshit fucking shit. Otherwise, you're going to pay the price. So my son would be dead today if I wasn't, because they would have been killed by the medical stuff. So what happened was, when he was like less than 1 year old, he got pertussis, and he was put in the best hospital in Los Angeles in the ICU. And basically, what happens with a baby with pertussis is when they cough, you've instantly got to give them oxygen. 100% oxygen, or they will die. Very lucky if you don't wind up with brain damage. My son was fine. But here's the story, is that they had oxygen pipes, not tanks, because it's a modern hospital and they have oxygen coming out of the wall and shit like that. And so, they had this thing. So of course I don't trust anything, mechanical or something. It's like I go and test it out. I'm not trusting my son's life to any piece of shit they've got, taped to the wall. So I went and tried out this mask, and I went and, I've worked with acetylene torches and welding. So I'm like, they're like, excuse me, sir, you can't fuck off. I'm twiddling all the knobs and checking the pressure, and the thing shows the pressure on the thing, and so I feel it on the mask, and I can feel there's fuck all air coming out, there's fuck all oxygen coming out of the mask. So I said, nurse, there's like, this mask does not work. And she looks at the fucking meter and she says, it does, look at the fucking thing. And like, excuse me, you're interfering. And I said, fucking get the supervisor over here. This mask does not work. They went and got security, and I got that close to basically being hauled out of there. If they had, it went two ways. If security had have got me as like a bullshit parent and stuff, and hauled me out of the ICU, my son would be dead now. So I managed to get all of these guys. So I said, basically, I used the magic words, which I said, have this on record. if anything happens to my son, I've told you that this does not work. I will sue you. And then basically it's like, okay, we'll get the supervisor. They get the supervisor. Supervisor comes and does this, oh, fucking stupid, interfering, fucking busybody, no nothing public. And she goes, she went white. And she went, get the kid in the next ICU thing. He said, this doesn't work. And everybody was just fucking shattered. But so from then suddenly they treated me with a whole lot of fucking respect. My son is only alive today because of that. And after that, my wife and I, we took turns, 12 hours on, 12 hours off on the shifts in the ICU. And that's why he's alive today. And they let us man the ICU because after that, they trusted us. But just remember that. I went and looked at shit after that. I thought, like, how fucking bad are these fucking hospitals? This is the best hospital in LA. It's probably one of the best hospitals in America. And I went and had a look and say, like, what the fuck goes on in these fucking places? I found these books that I read a lot of things that they've done these studies where they found that, you know, again, if people die, they just cover it up in the hospitals. They basically, if they die, they write, they don't do an autopsy or any serious thing. They just write up what the guys came in with. So and so what these guys did in the study was they actually did forensics. Each one of these hospital patients that are supposed to just die, and they just write up, comes in with diabetes, dies, okay, died of diabetes. And they said, and then they looked and they found that the hospitals were absolutely fucking death traps. The conclusion I remember was that they said 50% of deaths are avoidable and attributable to negligence in the hospital. And they were things like, you know, hospitals are exactly like that. They're complex environments with lots of mechanical things. There's lots of electrical equipment. So a lot of the people are electrocuted because they're not grounded. They're in a bed and stuff like that. And so, you know, they just, you know, give the wrong medicine to some other or combination of medicines that is lethal and together. And they're doing this all the time. The way they get away with it is because the public's gullible. The public believes all of this stuff, and they can cover up their own mistakes. There's no review. They have the power of God, these doctors. And so but you have 50-50 chance of dying if you die in hospital, it's only 50% that it's the thing you came in with. That's one thing they're not telling you. The other thing they're not telling you is it's lethal for you to go in a hospital. If you're immunocompromised, you're going into a cesspit of the whole concept of hospitals is fucked up. Because you're going into an environment where there are millions of other sick people. The chances of you get a co-infection or something like that is extremely high. So if this is an immunocompromised disease, everybody goes, oh, call an ambulance. No. It's like the last thing you want to do is be in an environment where everybody's sick. And that's before that's before you get onto subjects like how they're mutating all these super viruses and strep and all this kind of you know, basically they're crawling with necrotizing fasciitis, just about all these things. They all, but they don't share this with the gullible public. The gullible public is so obsessed with healthcare as some benefit that they never think of the obvious, that perhaps this is not. Perhaps this is not what it says it is. In fact, it's the opposite. People don't say that. You can't say it. People have a fucking hernia. But I'm telling you, look into it. You probably don't want to associate with these things. Basically, my rule of thumb is if it has a white lab coat on it, it's fucking deadly. Don't go near it. So, you know, it's basically, I would do everything I could. There are few things they can do a lot for you, but like a heart attack, they can do a lot for you. But, you know, most things, the public's trust in medicine is well out of whack with the reality. The guys in first aid and basically the ambulance teams, the emergency teams, those guys can do a lot for you. After those guys, they're handing you down a chain where they can do less and less for you, and eventually you get strangled to death by an accountant. So just remember this shit and stop believing all these fucking wolves in sheep clothing is probably what I got to say. But if anybody completely thinks I'm out of line on this, then speak now.
No, we've had plenty of scandals in UK with NHS. I mean, it's like the second biggest employer in the world, I think, or something crazy. So, like the middle management overkill is just off the scale. It's absolutely shocking. I think that's part of the problem is like that now. Like, so there's been so many scandals over like the fact that nurses are not really nursing anymore. There was so many people that died just because they're just like nobody's looking, like nobody's doing the thing they should be doing, which is like nursing and caring for people. That's the most scandalous thing. It's like they've become so desensitized and they have to like meet all these targets, and it's criminal. It's terrible. We did have a like, yeah, there's a huge spate of superbugs that I can't remember the specific names, but yeah, there was loads of that going on. So yeah, but now it's, you know, I mean, it's not to criticize. There are still, you know, lovely people and like great people who work in there, obviously, but it's just overcome with management. You know, it's just too, and the capacity is just completely through that. You know, it's overstretched beyond belief because of, you know, too many people. Too many people living too long, I suppose, and beyond what it was set out to do. It was set out to be. It was too good. The goal was too amazing. Healthcare for life, you know, after the war, and it was so successful. Now, you know, it's been its own downfall.
I think there's a Netflix show, I think, called Dope Sick, and you guys should all take a look because it's going over how OxyContin got spread throughout the market, and like essentially it was this one letter to the editor from some journal somewhere, or guy who publishes a lot of stuff, writes letters to the editor, and it was saying that OxyContin people didn't get addicted in this like little small area of like restricted environment, and then the whole industry was built around that one little like half a paragraph, and spread out throughout, and you know, just totally manipulated, pushed through the FDA. Essentially, the opium wars again, except this time in the West instead of the East. So the amount of trust and everything, like going up to the FDA and everything, it was all corrupted. All of the institutions were captured, all along the way. So it's I mean, I don't know how much history is there, and how much is the narrative arc, but it's it made me think twice about the medical system.
Well, the Sackler family, yeah.
Well, even with the current pandemic, we all are aware of how in the early days when there were no injections or vaccines yet, some doctors figured out that there were treatments that worked, but there was that suppression, and so the protocol was that the doctors and the hospitals were so afraid of this new virus that they didn't want to try to relieve people's symptoms. They were just told to go home, and when you can't breathe, come back. And then after that, then the protocol is to put you on ventilator, and then by that time it's too late and you perish. And I think even in these days those protocols are so inflexible. It's just some doctors say that the goal of a doctor should be to prevent hospitalization and death, but that was what was not happening. So I have a newfound fear of going to the hospital these days, because especially in these days where there's so much still fear of the virus that no one of your family members can come, no one can advocate. Even if I had someone like you who knew how to stand up for me, they won't be allowed into the room. So I don't know, it's just crazy making.
Yeah, so I think what they try to do with the jab is they put all their eggs in one basket and said, we're going to rely on new tech to save it, because the experts bamboozled themselves into groupthink on how to tackle a pandemic. So a lot of the pandemic preparations and the prequel, the Bill Gates prequel of the pandemic and stuff, those things are not all that good, from the sense that they make rigidity of people's thinking and flexibility. So I think that they shoehorned everything into this. We must stick to one message, and we must make sure that there's only one message. There's consensus around this technology, and you see how what they weren't thinking is what happens if that they had this idea fixe that this is how we're going to win the battle. And like so often with generals that do that, then they don't think, what happens if we're wrong? So, well, that would be unthinkable. If jabs don't do it, we're fucked. So therefore, don't think about that, and they barrel forward. Now we're exactly in that position. I just posted something where that's this Chinese paper that says we're fucked now. They're basically all the Western countries have been saying booster. It's all about the booster. The booster's like they just come in and said booster's fucked. So it's like we are absolutely fucked. They are absolutely fucked. So that's why they're going into lockdowns and stuff now, is because they know that they're out of ammunition and the fucking hordes are coming. So it's not going to go endemic. The single strategy they had, the killer silver bullet, is now fucked. It's useless. So if you went for their silver bullet strategy, you're an idiot, because fucking it's useless now. And so so their final thing is like the booster, and it's gone. So now they're out. They've got no defenses, no pretenses. They're shown to be incompetent fucking in nincompoops.
Well,
and so that's where we stand now as of Sunday.
Well, a lot of the contrarian scientists on this have been saying all along that is a vaccine really the best response for a upper respiratory tract coronavirus? I'm not sure that is that right. I think that's what I understand from what they said, that is not the best approach with the way that the virus, as we understand it, works, how it interacts with the cells. That was not that's too narrow a field or vector to
Yeah,
work.
and one doctor said that it was just a pillar. Like there were other pillars of fighting the virus. One is early treatment, and then educating the people that you have to have your immune system strong, and then vaccination is another pillar. But like Hugh said and Ryan said, we don't want to go into this all our eggs in one basket or monoculture, that this is the only way, and we suppress all kinds of other information and diversity in proven things that do work for some segment of the population.
Yeah, it's actually pretty complicated, because not only is there there's like the alternative messaging against the mainstream messaging, but that also is filter bubbled and monocultured. So those memes can spread without being true, just like the memes can spread in the mainstream journalism and stuff like that without being true. So it's I think what the general takeaway from this conversation could be is that we need to work on basic competence, self in yourself, like take a paramedic course, take a learn to sift through the data yourself, check the mask yourself, like rely on yourself. Stop worshiping the information from authorities, whether they're alternative sources or not, and try to build enough knowledge to be able to see the contradictions in what's out there, and to doubt yourself as well. So try to work with the kind of information architectures that Hugh was talking about, where he's like, you can use networks by of experts by sampling them for predictions and then combining their predictions. Little things like that will help you navigate in the fog of war of the modern complexity explosion.
Yeah, one thing I'd add to that is it's not only a question, we're such individualists, but I'm saying that I've said over and over again, individual idea to think, how can you beat the system and stuff is not good. It's fatal. Just don't even start. We must all get in the mindset of like team human must win, right? So it's like we want our side to win, and our side is team human. Is we don't want to save our own skins. So the other guys are going to go down because they're all in the mindset of how can I save my skin? So you keep with that thought and you're fucked. That's the very first thing you do is like you keep on thinking, how can I save my skin? And you guarantee that you're fucked in detail. So the winning team is the team that basically will sacrifice themselves. So the thing that I'd add to what Ryan says is diversity. It's like, it's not really important to nail the right thing, to find the truth. What's more important is diversity. Even in the Extinctionati, it's the reason everybody wants consensus, particularly on the left. They want consensus and happy families and agreement. Fuck agreement. Agreement's fucking lethal. You just saw what all these fucking things. We worked together against the virus and we had agreement. All these governments worked together. And look, we're fucked now. Stupid fucking asses. What they should have done is they should have said each country does their own fucking thing. Each community does their own thing. We need diversity of strategies, assholes. And then basically you can guarantee that out of the diversity, somebody's going to be right, just like Galton. You say like, somewhere the bell curve will come out to be right. No, we all got to be on the fucking long tail with everybody's fucking sick technical solution. Is like, fuck you, man. Fuck you, Anthony fucking F. It's basically, you fucking doomed millions of people with your linear thinking fucking supremacy authoritarian attitude. It's like, let everybody decide for them fucking selves at an individual level, at a local level, at a national level. Then we've got a chance that somebody squeaks through. You fucking might have doomed everybody that you fucking put a jab in, because you don't know what the consequence of the jab. It wasn't fucking tested. You don't know. It basically, it just propagated. It just got your fucking mitochondria to produce fucking S proteins. So it's like, dudes, those are going through the fucking brain barrier. You don't know what the fuck they're doing. You didn't even bother to test it. And you rolled it out on the world's population. You're a criminal. If you're a fucking criminal. And so it's like, you say like, these are what you have on offer. We have diversity. And so you first thing you say is like, okay, you, Mr. Big Pharma, is you have to give up the intellectual property. You have to share it with Africa. So that any Africans want to try your fucking voodoo, then let them have at it. But everybody's got to try something different. Otherwise, we're all going to be fucked. So it's like, you need diversity. We need argument. We need a lack of unity. We need barriers. We need tribes, right? So it's like none of this is bad. We need diversity of thought, diversity of lifestyles. Why we're turning ourselves into a monoculture? We're getting monogenetic. One of the reasons why I think we've got such a good long break without pandemics, mad break, without any serious pandemics, maybe 100 years that we don't deserve. And I think we did it because of homogeneity, basically. I mean, lack of homogeneity. It was basically because we're heterogeneous. And when air travel started, like one trip and Mr. Boeing got together and decided to make it one world. You see, what these are, I don't think everybody knows why, this is a disease of air travel, right? This is a disease of air travel. And so where air travel came from was like two of these fucking cunts, basically one trip and Boeing They were together having cigars at a cocktail party, and they both had this utopian vision that kind of like Rick Steves, that, you know, the you can get the whole world talking to each other. If people travel, they won't be so xenophobic. Americans will learn to love all these other cultures because they'll travel and see them. And that's what they were thinking. They were utopian visionaries that saw much more than we'll start the air travel business and get passenger travel going and making a mint. They were thinking in terms of making this one world that's all happy families, and that's what they were thinking. That's where the Boeing came from. That's where the jumbo jet came from. Was these utopian guys trying to unite the world in trade and understanding, and look what happened. They got a brief little time of grace because cultures weren't mingled. But now the genome, the human genome, is becoming completely homogeneous. It's almost, we weren't very diversified to start with, and now we're all melding in this melding pot. Well, this is just a target for a virus, right? Basically, if we have this large population that has the same immunity and the same genetic background, is like, you're an absolute target for the first virus that breaks through. There's going to be a rout. And that's pretty much what's happened. So thank you, you stupid fucking cunts. That's what you've done for us, is basically made us all one world, one solution, one fucking strategy to beat a fucking virus that can outmaneuver you. So great. Authoritarians win, and we're fucked now. So let that be the theme of 2021, is how authoritarian and groupthink fucked us. So fuck all the people on the left wing, fuck all the liberals, fuck all these people that say, like, we must all be one together, we must share and agree and stuff. No! It's fatal. We need different ideas, we need different opinions, we don't need to tolerate each other. We don't need to tolerate each other. Okay? It's fatal.
Yeah,
So
I think it's a intense rant. I think the diversity idea is important for your life planning. As a member of Extinctionati, you can if you find yourself doing things that a lot of other people are doing, like if you're scrolling on social media, you're not developing anything in particular that's unique in your thought process, right? You're not developing a skill that is rare that can help other people, or so when I what I like to think about is, when you are seeking what skills you want to develop next, like do something that's a little bit hard to find, or difficult, and because if everybody goes the easy route, then nobody knows what to do. Like when or everybody's going to be in the same boat, essentially, with everybody's going to be holding a screwdriver when someone needs a hammer or something. So we need to think about how we can differentiate ourselves in different strategies and skill sets. And that also leads to more income potential as well, because when you do things that are rare, you're more valuable.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
mutual support between complementary skills is the thing. That's what the Journal of a Plague Year, Daniel Defoe's Journal of a Plague Year, the guys that he traces through there, I've said before, is that those basically the three guys, they made out like bandits because they were three completely complementary skills. They were completely different. And so you need completely complementary. You need to get in, make chums with all the people you think are bastards, because if you're a snowflake and you're like, I don't, automatically cut off everybody that's right wing or a gun nut or something, like, you might get into a situation where a gun nut is exactly the kind of friend you want, right? So don't be so self-assured, snowflake.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I completely agree with what Ryan's saying, because I think that's the most kind of disturbing thing about this whole period of the last 2 years for me personally has been, and probably for many of you as well, is just how, particularly here in the UK, is like how quickly people just automatically just became subservient and just communal, like as like they were under this sort of new regime, everyone must do this for the greater good, kind of like drones, like everyone just not questioning anything, just being obedient. I just couldn't stand it. It just, from the beginning, like that's what really made me feel sick, is how quickly people just sort of burn, and it's weird. It's really strange to actually witness it.
Watch this stuff, man. This stuff is so dangerous. I keep on like giving strong hints to people that like we're heading to war. And if everybody does this group thing, is people follow the same arc going to war. They all follow the same thing. If you go the First World War, the Second World War, the Civil War, there's any bloody war that you've had, everybody goes through the same psychological process, and it all winds up with people learning the reality in the mud, in the trenches, with fucking chlorine gas in their lungs. So it's just, we on that arc, right? We are following lockstep in the pattern of our ancestors over and over again. So I keep on telling you, man. I told you January the 6th. I said, that basically everybody is like laughing and saying, "Oh, look at the guy with the horns." And I said to you guys, it's like, this is a fucking coup. I know the script.
Yep.
Now they've come out with it. They've got a spreadsheet where it said exactly what I told you was the script they were following. There's basically, now they declare martial law, and basically this is emperor for life. And so now it's been exposed. That was exactly what I told you. But while I was telling you that, I was talking to other normies and stuff that all they said is, "Oh, it's funny as fuck because the guy's got horns on. Oh, fuck, aren't these right-wingers ridiculous?" I said, "You're looking at a fucking coup, you assholes." And they didn't know. They didn't know what they were looking at, even as they were seeing it. And so it's like, and now I'm telling you again, this is the script for war. We are heading towards a war, right? So it's like, what you want to do is stay out of it, and you're going to have to work like a fucking ninja to stay out of it.
That's absolutely right. And this is where your good citizen training, you need to slough that off. So if you have good citizen training where you think that you're going to stand and fight and you're going to improve your country and this kind of thing, like, you're not going to fix it. Get go away. Go somewhere else, because there's you need to take care of yourself, take care of your friends, and make new friends, and just step outside, step away from step off the railroad tracks as the train's coming, because it's not something that you can push back. The stand and fight mentality just pulls you back in.
Yeah, you're gonna need skills like crazy, right? This is anybody that says we must go through the different types that you don't want to be, but some of them already. You don't want to be the guys that do Kool-Aid in the jungle, Jim Jones. Don't want to do it. Don't want to do Jim Bendel. Don't want to follow those guys. You don't want to go and follow the make a big stand and make a moral stand, and who cares about the strategy or something like that. All of these guys are dead. Just go and read Sun Tzu, right? Sun Tzu is the best reading you could possibly do in the time that we're going into. And it's absolutely apropos for our time. And you can read in every strategy. You say, "Oh, I know this. This is faulty. Oh, I know this. This is Jem Bandel. Oh, I know this. This is Rupert Reed." And you can go through the fucking list of saying that these are the strategies that guys are pulling. They're all pulling them because they're all individualists. They all think they're children of the universe, and this is the first time the universe has been blessed with their uniqueness. Say, no, you're a cookie cutter thing. Is basically everybody's done this before for thousands of years. So go and pick up Sun Tzu and go and see what idiot strategy you've picked, because Sun Tzu has named it and told you exactly how it winds up. He knows what he's fucking talking about. So we must go through all of the things you do and don't want to do. But just if depending on the situation you get into, you basically got to deal with that. And the primary one, think, well, I'm going to get out of this, is not viable. That's we are on dead ground, right? This is what Sun Tzu calls dead ground. We all stand on dead ground. So this is why we must start pushing the idea of the flippening or something, because even if it's wrong, it puts people in the right psychological frame of mind, and that's that we're on dead ground. So big mistake now if you think, if you're in one of the things where you think there are escape routes and ways you can get out and stuff, and say, no, they're gone now. I'm telling you absolutely that there's, even if you've got the resources of Bezos, there are no escape routes. We're in this now, staring down the barrel of a gun. And there's no escape. Don't even think of escaping. The escape is through the middle. You have to negotiate it. You have to pass the test. You cannot get out of this test. You have to go through it, right? So get that in your mind.
Yeah, but at the same time, don't get drafted or something. Like
No, but even so, you see, well, the reason why I'm hesitant there is because you may not avoid it. You see, this is the thing: is if you must get in the mindset of being flexible, because you may take jabs, you may have to get drafted, and it doesn't mean it's that. You see, what people sometimes do is, now I'm fucked. You see, you want to avoid them, and now I'm fucked mentality. And if people say like, oh, if I'm drafted, that's it. And then, then they get drafted. You say, well, that's by no means the end of the game. In fact, you could actually spin that into some kind. You might, maybe you want to avoid being drafted to start with, but once you're drafted, you might be able to work some sweet little number that saves your ass. So the thing is not to get into a rigid mindset. You think, I'll take the fates, and don't forget, the thing is not to save your ass. It's to save somebody out of Team Human. Not necessarily you. We all just fucking sperm, and we all just do blocking for our comrades to make sure that one of us gets through, not to make sure that we get through. We are not Darwinists. The Darwinists are all going to die because they think it's who the champion makes it through. No. Here's the secret of survival. This is the ultimate secret of survival. The survival is the guy who has mates, right? That's it. It's mutual support, right? Kropotkin told us the truth. It's mutual support. Team Human wins because Team Human is, none of them are trying to win themselves. They're just trying to get the team to win. They're team players. All the other guys are not team players. They're all doomed before they've even started.
Yeah, it's like I said a couple meetings ago. My thought on it is, it's not up to me whether I get to survive. It's up to other people.
Yeah, it's not really a question of you want to avoid being drafted. You might want to, but I mean, you've got to keep your eye on Team Human. Say, like, maybe it makes strategic sense that you get drafted so that someone else doesn't have to get drafted. That's quite legit too, But there are no real rules, right? Yeah, exactly. It's basically, look, take the lesson from the virus. The virus is trying to teach us all these swell lessons, and we're not listening. The virus has just told you what to do. Do diversity, mutate, spread like a ninja. Basically, it's telling you all the shit you need to do. It's like, be water, be Covey. Basically, it's showing you the way, and you see the responses that it's getting. It's getting all these Vogon type linear thinking responses, and you see the guys are getting fucked up. And you say, be like Covey. Covey is the lesson. Covey is the winner. All these static defenses these guys are putting. You see, a jab is a static defense. It's like trying to build the wall of China to keep out this fire. It's like, come on, dude. You're making a wall of straw to keep out a fire. It's like, this is retarded. Stop this shit. Just take these people out of power and just fucking bring out the guillotines. It's too late for this shit, guys. Really, these guys need to be taken out. Bang, bang, bang. And then we need to get on with this job ourselves. So that's the lesson for the day. We better round it off there. Yeah, Kropotkin is my boy. These guys were not idiots, right? Listen to the past. Listen to the ancestors. Everybody's got super dumb. Each generation's dumbed down, and dumbed down. Go back. Hear the voices from the past. The further back you go, the harder it gets to hear them, but the more wisdom they have. So remember that for the solstice. We're celebrating the Yule. We're celebrating a pagan festival, and it's a time of change. This is the real new year. So just have a very good solstice, and dying to see all your videos you come out with. And yeah, excellent. You remind me of both of them. Yeah. So yeah. So okay. So then that's it for tonight. And happy Yuletide. And may the sigil come alive and live long. And yeah, let's try get XRMed up to 1,000 members. Just try get it to 1K, and then we can ditch this stupid shit and ditch HR and just give them a goodbye and move on. So I think, yeah, we'll do that, and then start popularizing the Extinctionati, I think.
Yeah, wave to XR so long, and thanks for all the fish.
I would seriously, I want to put that post up. Goodbye and thanks for all the fish, and just toast a burner account by cross posting it. Yeah, but yeah, it's like they're a spent force, and the police crimes bill is coming in, and so it's like that. Well, I think the XRMed operation was a success. It was the only was to basically troll them for radicals, and you're it. You're the crop. So good harvest, and yeah, it's good winter solstice.
Yeah, they sacrificed themselves. Happy Yuletide.
Yeah. It's we need a few sacrificial lambs, and they were it. So that's the meaning of Yuletide. We need at least one sacrificial lamb, and we got loads. We got hundreds. So, bumper. Anyway, okay, so talking about sacrifice, we better actually pause and give up this whole thing as a sense of sacrifice. So don't take sacrifice too far. You don't want to rush to be a scapegoat, but if push comes to shove, don't forget to sacrifice. And we sacrifice everything we got, everything we learned, everything we get. We just take what we need and pass it on, and that's the secret to survival. So let's pause, give up everything that we think we might have got for still. Om Paramatmane Namah. Well, happy Yuletide, everyone.
Happy solstice.
Thank you. Happy solstice.
Happy solstice.
May the bug be not with you. See you next week.
Yeah. See ya.
Be safe out there.